Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Ross. I chose to do my capstone project on the use of nature throughout American literature. This is a broad topic, so I narrowed my focus on three individuals who I believe to be some of the strongest and most impactful writers in the history of American lit: Walt Whitman, Richard Wright, and Alice Walker. As for the major question my thesis attempts to answer, it's evident that nature has been a pillar in writing for the entire history of American lit, but I wanted to investigate how authors use it differently in their stories. How does the use of nature enhance their fiction and poetry? Do factors like the writer's race, sex, or era of birth affect how nature shows up in their writing? And are there any constants? Of these three writers, only Whitman is known for writing specifically about nature. Whitman was born in 1819, and he's best known as a poet. He writes about nature plainly in his poetry, and it is usually in a celebratory fashion. He also seems to find every possible opportunity to see himself and others in nature, and he finds nature so beautiful and it fills him with such joy that naturally he wants to celebrate himself too. Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman features a number of poems that perfectly encapsulate the ideologies of Romanticism, including a celebration of the individual, human emotion, and the sublime, and references to nature related to these concepts. Some of Richard Wright's most notable works include the novel Native Son, the autobiography Black Boy, and the novella Uncle Tom's Children. Uncle Tom's Children was titled based on Harriet Beecher Stowe's anti-slavery novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, published in 1852. Uncle Tom's Children by Richard Wright contains 6 stories featuring Black protagonists who find themselves in dangerous or even life-threatening situations, generally thrust upon them due to racism. Nature plays a unique role in each novella, and it often seems to work as a driving force that puts the protagonists in even greater danger. Alice Walker, born in 1944, is still alive today. The youngest of her parents' 8 children, Walker published books of poetry through the late 60s and 70s, focusing on the coming of age of civil rights workers. Her 1982 novel, The Color Purple, earned her the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, making her the first Black woman to achieve this great honor. Walker continued writing essays and books of poetry focusing on racial and gender equality, including Absolute Trust in the Goodness of the Earth, published in 2003. In this collection, Walker invites readers to reflect upon themselves and their society, and she uses elements of nature as poetic devices. Like Whitman, Walker frequently uses nature to seek and identify herself. Conversely from Whitman, Walker uses nature to highlight her experiences unique to her as a Black woman in America. As for my research methods, because the capstone is meant to build upon something I had already written, I found a paper on Walt Whitman from my Romanticism class. I knew I wanted to write about nature, and I considered writing about Emerson and Thoreau as well, but I wanted to include more modern authors and have a range of people from different races and sexes. I also would have loved to include even more famous writers, or even less famous ones, to compare and contrast how they use nature in their writing, because there's an abundance of material to choose from. But I had to narrow it down to 3 voices. And I think the 3 that I picked do an excellent job representing American writing. As for my next steps, as time progressed and authors from more diverse backgrounds had the opportunity to make their voices heard, American literature was gifted with a whole new array of ideas and perspectives regarding nature as a driving force in writing. In literature and poetry alike throughout American history, nature is used to reflect humanity, from the individual to the culture as a whole, and to represent the dichotomies we face, like serenity and conflict, unity and isolation, beauty and horror, and many others. What authors have to say about nature has been fluctuating throughout the history of American literature, but using it in their writing has been a constant, and I predict that it will be in the future as well. As for my next steps, I'll just need to keep reading contemporary writing, listening to whatever new voices have to say, and I'll find out if I'm right. Thank you for your time.